Hello and welcome to GSF Podcast, sponsored by the Sinise Foundation's Education and Outreach Initiative, aiming to educate the public on the importance of serving America's veterans, first responders, and their families.
Welcome to the Sinise Foundation podcast. I'm your host, Cristin Snyder, and joining me today are Tom Spooner and Michael Odell from Warrior's Heart, an organization dedicated to providing healing and support to our active duty service members, veterans, and first responders dealing with addiction, post-traumatic stress, and mental health challenges. Both veterans themselves, Tom and Michael, have transformed their struggles and triumphs into a mission to help others. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, to kick us off, can you both give a little background on your military service?
Yeah, so I served in the Marine Corps from 2006 to, right? We got that in common. Head injuries and everything.
You're surrounded.
But I served with 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, America's Battalion. We were stationed in Hawaii, so that was cool. First time I ever left Texas was when I left and joined the military.
Rough.
And I know it was so rough. But America's Battalion, what they do is, so there's 132, 3, and 3, and they deploy back to back. One's in theater, one's training, and one's on leave. And so we did that real quick. Went to Fallujah for my first tour. Went to Ramadi for our second tour. And those were, as you would imagine they were. And then
How were they?
So they were normal combat deployments. And we can talk about this, I'm sure, later, but one of the big things that happened in Ramadi was our saw gunner took his life after about 30 days of being there. And that impacted, like, you train, right? You train for combat triage, you train to engage the enemy, rules of engagement, all those things.
Yeah, there's things you expect.
That you don't expect your machine gunner to take his life in the bathroom. You know, it's like, what? He was, I think, 21 or 22 years old, super young guy. And that impacted a lot of us in a big way. And that was my last deployment. I started to suffer pretty bad with PTS and addiction. And that was the end of my Marine Corps career.
Okay.
It was in 2010. And that's when I got out.
Okay. And then you, Tom?
Mine, I'm older, so my story's a little longer.
That's okay.
A lot longer. So I came in, when I first came in, so my granddad, World War II vet, my uncle, Vietnam vet, 3 tours, so that was my heroes. So that's what I always wanted to do, is come in the military. So I came in 1990 whenever I was 20 years old. That was right when the Gulf War kicked off. So I was in the Gulf War as a brand new private. So that was my entry into the military. Welcome to combat. And so I spent 5 years in the 82nd from 90 to 95.
Oh, wow.
And then from 96 to 2001, I was in 7th Special Forces Group as an 18 Charlie engineer. And then from 2001 to 2011, I was at Delta as an operator.
Oh, wow.
And ended up doing 12 deployments, 40 total months time in combat.
40
TBI,
deployments.
PTS, the
all the things.
Yeah, so I got all of the things. The only big thing about my story, and it's part of my military story too, is I got sober back in '92. I'd struggled with alcoholism at a young age and got sober at a young age. So I was super fortunate to not have that on my plate when I was trying to deal with my undiagnosed, untreated TBI and then all the unprocessed trauma, from moral grief and injury and that kind of stuff. So got out in 2011 with 20 years, 10 months, and 29 days. Not that I was counting. But yeah, I love, I was one of the super lifer guys. I would have done 30, but I ended up getting med boarded out, broken back, head injury, back injury, shoulder, leg, like the normal from where I came from. So
you say it like it's, it is the normal, but when for the civilians, who on the outside who don't understand abnormal. The normal, it's very abnormal.
Yeah.
Like that's, even one of those injuries, even one of them is,
Yeah. So that was my military career. The only thing I regret of my military career is that I couldn't do more.
Oh.
That was the only thing.
You both have such a legacy of service. How was your transition to civilian life? He laughs.
That's why we mentioned I had the sobriety piece intact.
Right.
And I did not.
And you did it. Okay.
So my transition, so for me, when I was 13 years old, I had my first drink of alcohol.
Oh.
Right? Stole it from a friend's parents' fridge, ran to the woods, drank it. My friend didn't like it, and I loved it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I drank his. I loved it, and because it changed. I needed something to change the way I felt at such a young age. So that's when my addiction started. 13 years old.
Okay.
I joined the Marine Corps, hoping that would pull me out of that mess,
like structure,
and then also help me just become something more than what I was, because I knew I had potential. And I was a good Marine, but that part of me didn't change. It just continued to get worse and worse and worse. When I got out of the Marine Corps, after that second deployment, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I was a mess. I needed help. What I did was took an alcohol awareness class. It was 1 hour long. I got a certificate.
Do you still have that?
Yeah, I do, with all my other Marine Corps awards. Is my Alcohol 101 certificate. I got my DD-214 and went home. My transition sucked. I was a full-on alcoholic, PTS, depressed, afraid to get help, afraid to admit it, and there's a whole lot that happened, but one of the big things, literally 2 months after I got out of the Marine Corps, I was in a horrible car accident, drinking and driving, and was in the hospital. All kinds of bad stuff happened, and I was so far gone and lost that even that situation was not enough to change what I was doing, how I was living. I think I might have been sober for 4 days after that, and that's because I was in the hospital. And then it was back to that, and that life, I stayed in that mess from 2010 to 2016. So 6 years of complete and utter chaos. Didn't want to live anymore. So that was my transition from service. Was proud of what I had done, but didn't want to be alive anymore. And so that was, and people knew it too. My family knew it. My friends knew it, my loved ones knew it, but they also knew that, despite all of their efforts, there was nothing they could do if I wasn't ready to do it myself.
Right. It'd have to be your decision.
Yeah.
You knew you should be getting help, but you also just didn't. What do you think that was? Is it a shame thing? Is it you don't feel called to do it yet? Where does that stem from?
I didn't want to live anymore, and I think part of me felt like getting help meant that I would then have to live with the things that I didn't want to live with. So for me, it was better to not be alive than find a way out and live with the things that I was living, because I didn't know any other way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that
tools.
Yeah, no tools.
I
had no idea that the possibility of living a happy, healthy life amidst all of those things that I've gone through, which we didn't even talk about yet, it was like that way of life doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
not
not existing is better.
Got it. It was like the only answer. Okay. And so, Tom, could you share what inspired you to co-found Warrior's Heart and maybe share the story behind its inception?
Yeah, so when I got sober back in 92, I was super passionate about it. You know what I mean? It was the first time I had, like Michael was talking about, I didn't have tools to deal with life. You know, I had tools. I had a power greater than myself, you know, my God. I had a fellowship, I had family, you know what I mean? Like I was like on fire. You know what I'm saying? Like
and you just want to share it with the world.
I went from hopeless to having hope and to having all the things that I never had in my life that I didn't obtain by alcohol before. And because alcohol wasn't really my problem, it was my solution. So when you took away my alcohol, now all I was left with is problems. And like Michael, you know,
that makes sense.
Yeah, because I got nothing to go fall back on, and I'm hopeless. You know, so this is just how it is. I'm gonna ride it out until it ends. So I was fortunate and got that at the beginning. And when I say sober, I mean a lot of people do it a lot of different ways. But you know, I went to AA. Do step work. I write gratitude lists. I sponsor people. I have sponsors. You know what I mean? Like I was all in from that moment. Like I'd be on deployments in Iraq, like on the sat phone, talking to one of my sponsees. You go to a meeting today, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
I love that.
Because that was it was my way of life. Like I'm all in on whatever I'm doing. That all in on bad. You know what I mean? So I'm all in. I have the capacity for greatness. That's great good or great bad, you know. So I focused on the great good and learned how to do that. And that's why I had that successful military career. And then kind of in the transition too is I had an undiagnosed TBI. Right, because everyone that I knew, my peer group, everybody had been blown up multiple times. So it was
just like you were saying before,
I
it's kind
ate
of
these
the norm.
mortar rounds and I did this, like it was like, okay, this is just kind of normal.
This is normal.
Yeah.
This is normal,
us.
which is very abnormal.
Right. Externally.
Yes.
Internally, though, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not anything special. Like, I don't get a special injury, but I did. And it was in 2006. I didn't get out to 11, so deployment. So my transition at the end, which goes into Warrior's Heart to answer your question, is because of, like, I knew I was losing my mind. Right. So I ended up was going to get out, you know, retire. And then, but because I had lost my mind before I got sober, like in 92, I knew it was very familiar. Like, hey, so it wasn't figuratively like, oh my gosh, I'm so crazy, I'm losing my mind. It was like, no, I know what this is.
This is a familiar territory. I've been here.
And it was, so I was like, wow, you know, I was like, I thought I was going crazy. Because, I mean, if you're injured, you can get help. If you're crazy, you can't fix crazy. Like, I know that. And so anyway, with all that ties into Warrior's Heart. But it was, like I said, I had an incredible wife, 2 sons, a fellowship, support group, a God, step work, sponsors, sponsees. Like, if there was somebody that was set up for success, it would have been me, you know, and I almost killed myself.
Oh, man.
And that was without the drugs or alcohol. It was because my executive functioning, my traumatic brain injury, which 50% of it resided in my decision maker, you know, I just thought it's like, hey, I got to get all this noise to stop in my head. And I tried step work, didn't work. I tried talking to my sponsor, I tried prayer, I tried meditation, I tried all my tools in the tool belt. And then it's like, well, I know what bullets do to brains, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so I started going through a military decision-making process of like why this was a valid course of action. And just grace, for me, the grace of God stepped in and I realized what I was doing. Like, oh my God, like
stepped out of yourself.
Yeah, where I was like, I am actually considering this as a valid course of action. So it wasn't, because I had tons of hope. I wasn't like they'd be better off or any of that kind of stuff. No, it was just pure, horrible decision processing going on. But I realized it, and then immediately, I won't say I got help on my own, but it's always another warrior, someone saying, hey man, let's go. You're not allowing me to keep walking in the darkness, you know? And so I went to 3 months TBI clinic, you know, cognitive therapy, psychological therapy, even had to get on meds a little bit and all. But if I would have been struggling with alcohol and drugs during that time, I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? Like the folks that usually take their own lives, you know what I mean? They usually have all three going on, you know, and that's unprocessed trauma, TBI, and alcohol chemical dependencies, you know, which impede good decision making on anyone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So anyway, so I lived through all of that. So I've always been passionate about sobriety. I've always been passionate about this population. I mean, like I said, I'm a super lifer. You know what I mean? Mission, health and welfare of the troops. You know, so when I got out, you know what I mean, I had a new mission. You know what I mean? And but it was still health and welfare of the troops. You know what I mean? And now it wasn't the war overseas; it's the war at home, which is much more difficult.
Oh yeah.
And so. That's what I always wanted to do, is doing it through a training event. I met a guy named Josh Lannon, and who happened to be a guy that, and him and his wife Lisa, they set up treatment. They'd already had like 6 treatment facilities, high level of care. They're really smart, knew what they were doing for like 12 years. Like, hey, we want to make the next one a veterans place. You know, what do you think? And like we said, are we best friends now? You know what I mean? Like that.
Exactly.
I'm kind of into it. Me too.
Yes.
So the shortest version of that story is that we got together. So Warrior's Heart is the Lannon family, Josh and Lisa Lannon, and my family, Lori and Tom. It's our life's work. Yeah. Like, there's nothing that we do at Warrior's Heart that I haven't personally gone through myself. And same way with Josh. And so that's kind of the why behind it. You know, it's not just a thing that we're doing. It's what our whole lives took us in life experiences for us to come together to be able to produce and deliver what happens at Warrior's Heart. So that was, and I'm the luckiest dude in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, if you gave me $500 million and said, Tom, what would you be doing? I'm like, that's what I would be doing. I'd buy a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah,
you know
people would know.
But I would be.
There would be signs.
But I love doing what I'm doing, even as hard as it is. Super hard work, super emotional, super. But I mean, I wouldn't be doing anything else.
Yeah. Beautifully said. So, Michael, you're the COO of Warrior's Heart. Can you describe? How would you describe the core mission of Warrior's Heart and how it aims to support our defender communities?
So, at its core, what we are doing is providing a safe space for the warrior population to heal. It's like warriors healing warriors, strength through healing.
I like that. Warriors healing warriors.
That's our mission statement.
Okay.
Yeah. And what that means is just like what we're doing here. We're talking, we're having a conversation. You know, we're here to receive just as much as you are and give just as much. And that's what happens at Warrior's Heart. Yes, we've got the medical facility with all our nurses and providers. We have our clinical program with all of our licensed clinicians and staff. But so much healing happens around the fire, happens around a warrior just talking to another warrior. When we first met, I was like, you were in the Marine Corps and you have head problems? Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Again, we're best friends. That happens at Warrior's Heart each and every day.
Yeah.
What's different about it, Warriors Healing Warriors, is when I went to treatment, so I've been to a few places. When I went to treatment, I remember, and I share this all the time, I was in a group, and it was like 2011-ish, a year after I got out, and I went to this program, and I'm in group, and there's this young man, we're all young at the time, complaining that his mommy sent him to treatment for marijuana, which is fine, whatever, that's his story, and he was angry about it. But then I was like, okay, do I really want to open up the can of worms about suicide, losing my uncles who served to suicide, military sexual, do I really want to open this can of worms in front of this person who's clearly upset? Like, no, I don't want to traumatize anybody. So I shut down and didn't share anything. I did all the work, but I didn't share. That doesn't happen in Warrior's Heart.
Got it.
Because when somebody is feeling that way and they feel like there's nobody in the world that can understand them, there's nobody in the world that has gone through the same or similar situations, they show up and then they are quickly humbled with, holy crap, I am not alone.
Yeah.
And at its core, that's what we provide, a safe place for people to actually heal.
I love that. And there's such power with the community, the military community and first responder community, that when you're amongst somebody who has also served, it's like you know each other's language in a way. There's unspoken things that you already know. So
I can do cool things on my own, but if I'm surrounded by 50, 60, 70, 4 or 2 people that I can relate with and we can connect, like we can accomplish so much more together. And it's the same thing in recovery. It's a fellowship.
Yeah. That's perfectly said. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just with, like you said, it's that peer, like we know there's no pressure, like peer pressure, right? You know what I mean? And so when we serve just the warrior population, you know, active duty military veterans, first responders, it's not because we're special. You know what I mean? We keep it that way because it's an immediate peer network, you know, and it immediately, like Michael says, it's like, because when I'm suffering and I'm in the darkness, you know what I mean? It feels like I'm alone. It thinks like I'm alone, like no. And then like Michael mentioned, whenever you're sitting there and someone else is sharing like my story, this guy's sharing my story, you know, it's like, it strips it all away, you know, and amongst the peers, you can't say, well, you don't understand. It's like, what?
Yep.
I don't understand what, you know what I mean? And so it removes all of that so we can get to the truth about what it is that I can't live with in life, you know? And the same, you know, the peer network is if I'm BSing around and not being honest and not sharing stuff, like I'm going to get called out on that.
Right.
Not by the clinicians, but back to the warriors healing warriors, you know? So it's, I mean, we, like Michael said, we need our professionals, our clinicians to crack us open, get us crying and all that stuff, you know? And,
strip like the one layer down, you know?
And our providers getting our meds right, whatever the thing is, but at the end of the day, like Michael was saying, it's warriors healing warriors is not a slogan. It's, you know, we got screwed up together. That makes sense that we're going to heal together.
Right.
Or not. You know, so.
You've taken your experiences and personal traumas in a way and can say 2 powerful words to the people that you're helping to, which is, I understand. Yeah. You know, and that's that connection is invaluable.
I was just sharing with Tom about a story. I'll keep it super short. Warriors healing warriors. And so part of my story, and we might talk about this in a little bit, but after 6 years after I got out of the military, I went to prison for substance abuse. We can talk about that in a little bit if you want.
No, you can share.
I just opened the can of worms, but the
ahead,
Warriors Healing Warriors piece.
Yeah.
So we had a client one time who substance abuse leads to trouble. Like it just does. So this warrior's looking at having to go spend time in jail or prison. And he's unable to process and unable to heal, right? Because that's lingering, scared to death. So I get to go have a talk with him. And I get to go say, hey man, like it's okay. Whatever's happening, like here's what I've been through.
Yeah, you're like the future version of him in
my
a way.
story.
Yeah.
And what I can tell you is there is hope, even though I know you don't see it. Because I couldn't see it either. You know, 9 years ago, you wouldn't be able to tell me that life would be this way. I'd have been like, you're full of crap. So I know how you feel right now. But what I can tell you is it's up to you what your life is going to be after that. And it'll be easier when you just commit and say, this is what I have to do. Yeah. And he has hope now. Like he told, like he has hope now from my past. And it's warriors healing warriors. Like that is what it's about, because there's always somebody, we're never alone. There's always somebody that has experienced something similar. And when we're open to sharing those things, and our warrior population gets to where they're open to sharing, the code starts to crack. And people start to like, oh my gosh, I can heal. You did that? Oh my gosh, blah, 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 blah. And healing takes place just that way.
And it's hope. Because that's the thing, because when you're in that spaces, there is no hope. So now all of a sudden, whether even like there's many times that I couldn't articulate that was going on inside of me, but I'm not alone. There is hope. Even though, like you said, I can't see it, like, Tom, everything's going to be better. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Really?
Okay, I mean, I hear you, but I don't really believe it. But if I do the right actions that, all the actions that put me in a position to get whatever it is I'm trying to get, it'll happen. I mean, it's...
You're walking examples of hope, which is incredible. So I have to ask you both, this next question is for both of you, is how have your personal experiences inspired you? You've touched on that, but how have they?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
How have my personal
experience, inspired you on this mission?
Yeah. So for me, it comes back to, again, it's a story, but I would tell it every time whenever my first platoon sergeant was a Vietnam veteran, right? So I'm an old guy, and it was like the tail end
Salt
of
of
those
the earth,
dudes, right?
yeah.
So it was, and he was an E6.
Oh,
so,
man.
So he'd
Ooh,
been
even
busted a
better.
few times, right? You know what I mean? And getting ready to retire, and so anyway, the point with that is I'll keep it short, is that he asked me, when I went to PLDC, to become a sergeant, now I'm a sergeant, and he said, okay, so tell me what your job is as an NCO. And it's like a mission and health and welfare of the troops. I'm educated, man.
You can just
got it.
run through a wall,
He's like,
ready to go.
Yeah. He said, mission, got it. He's like, but what does health and welfare of the troops mean? I'm like, oh, it means like beans, bullets. I know how many kids they have. I know if they have any problems with this. I'm just like nailing this answer, right? And and then he's like, yeah, it doesn't mean that at all. I was like, no, I just came from the school, man. Like,
That is what the curriculum said.
Right. And I'm like, okay. And he said, this is what it means. It said, health and welfare of the troops means that you give them the ability to survive and thrive in combat. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So, and this is obviously coming from a warrior that had lived it, it wasn't theoretical. And so that changed everything for me as far as a leader, as an NCO.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, of course you got to know how many kids they have and if they're having problems. That's just part of it, but that's not the deal. So that piece, that my personal experience, throughout the military, that was installed at that moment and then fulfilled to the best of my ability, which was failure on some days, but more days not, and all the way to the end, and then so that was like still what I'm doing today, is giving the troops the health and their health and welfare, the ability to survive and thrive in combat. But now the combat is much different. It's the combat between our ears instead of externally.
I love that, the wisdom.
But with that, though, I have to say is like I am only the person that I am today because of the humans that I surround myself with. Like, I'm not that really great of a guy.
No, you are.
But my wife, she has an expectation of me, and I don't want to let her down. My sons have an expectation. Warrior's Heart, Michael, have all these people that expect me to not be perfect, but hey, deliver. And so because of that, and because again how all of us are, it's like, hey, I'll screw myself over, but I'm not going to let you down. I'm not going to let a teammate down. And so as a byproduct of that, I have me. But it's without the people in my life, without my family, without my friends, without Warrior's Heart, like I wouldn't be as great of a guy as I am sometimes.
How about you, Michael? How have your experiences, your personal experience? I mean,
that's such a great question. My whole, not anymore, part of my life, because now my life is sweet.
It is
good.
Part of my life was in complete and utter chaos, and now part of my life is in sobriety, serving others, thriving, happy, right? And when I was in jail, before I went to court and all this, got sentenced and all those things, my family brought my son. He was just a bit like a year old. And they brought him up, and in the county jail, there's like glass and then concrete below it, right? So like you could see, but then it's all concrete down here, so you can't see. So it's like,
got it,
right? My son saw me, and then my parents put him down, and he tried to find the hole in the concrete to come find me, and he couldn't. And so he started crying, and then I started crying. I'm probably going to cry right now, and that's okay. And I knew right then and there, like, this can't happen again. Like, it's unacceptable for me to put him through that. So I made a decision then that this was not going to be my life anymore. And the judge was offering me 8 years in prison. I prayed about it, and I made a deal with God. And I was like, I know you're not supposed to, do that, but I did. Like, I was like scratching at the surface, like, hey, someone help me. So I prayed about it. I was like, listen,
let's make a deal.
Here's the deal.
I was like, I'm thinking, like, I have an honorable discharge. I serve my country. I'm not a criminal. I have an alcohol and drug addiction that I can't kick on my own. I'm struggling with wanting to live anymore. Like, I'm not a bad person, but this is where I am. And I prayed about it. I was like, God, please, 3 years. I'll do 3 years with a smile on my face, and I will change my life. I promise. So I go back to court, and the judge offers me 3 years.
Get out of here.
Sure did.
Judge offers me 3 years, and I remember, like, kind of laughing about it. Like,
you're like, okay, I get it.
like, okay.
That was the
so
answer.
I signed on 3 years. The judge asked me, like, why do you seem so happy? I'm like, this is what I asked for. Thank you. Like, thank you. And so I go and I do my time. I do 2 years and I make it out on parole. While I was in prison, I prayed another prayer. I mean, I prayed a lot, but this is another specific one. I prayed that I was able to use my past as a way to help people and provide for my family. I didn't ask for what it looks like. That's what I, like, please, I don't have any other education, God. Like, I School of Hard Knocks, like, this is my education. I know how to not live, and now I'm learning how to live, and I want to use that to help people and provide for my family. And I was released from prison in 2018, found a job with Warrior's Heart 2 months later, on parole, ankle monitor, all these things.
How?
In the gym?
Yeah, they found me in the gym.
In the gym?
They found me in the gym. True story. And they were like, hey, do you want a job? You're a veteran, you're sober, and you've been in prison. Like, I was
That's
like,
the qualification
what?
for us, you know what I mean? Most people look at that as negative. We're like, that's our guy.
This is perfect. Yeah, you understand.
so
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, yeah, I'll take a job. And the job was answering phones, answering our 24/7 crisis line or helpline. And my job was helping veterans and first responders who qualify for what we offer get in our program. And if they don't, help them find a place for them to go. And so that's how my past experiences have helped shape where I'm at now. Like, actually, this month will be 9 years sober, the 31st. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
I just got to make it to the 31st.
There you go.
You will.
But that's how it shaped it. Like, that's what I prayed for. I prayed that I get to use this experience to help others. And, like, that's what God's been doing in my life since I prayed that prayer, sitting in the penitentiary in South Texas. Like, crazy.
Wow. So how have your experiences, I mean, there's no doubt your experiences have shaped the programs then at Warrior's Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It did, yeah, because it's we're a licensed, accredited facility, so the state mandates, hey, there's certain things that we have to do, say Rehab 101.
Got it.
You know what I mean, kind of deal. But then everything else that we do at Warrior's Heart absolutely shapes it. Like the number one thing, like right from the get-go, other than the Warriors healing Warriors, we already talked about that piece of it. But the other thing is environment of care. Right, so you think of rehab, you think of suicidal ideation, you think of, hey, let me take your shoelaces, your belts, like put you in a hospital type. Like, we don't heal like that. I mean, there's a place for that if that's your level of care that you need. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it's appropriate. Like, if it's a level of care, if we're getting surgery, I expect everyone to have masks on, we're in a sterile environment, because environment of care matters, right? So in order to heal mind, body, and spirit, like, what environment can do that, right? So it starts with our property. I mean, it's 543-acre ranch. That's a resort. Just as far as environment of care.
Right. I like you, mind, body, and spirit. It's all of it. You're not just seeing them as Right.
So that's why the most treatment, a lot of the things that are out there, they're really wonderful, but not everybody can get it because, like, it's not this part of me is my chemical dependency, this part of me is my TBI, this part of me is my unprocessed trauma, and I'm going to silo that off and go to these different silos. It doesn't work. If it worked, Warriors Heart wouldn't have needed to be created. But we created the place where, like, it's mind, body, and spirit. If you do not address the whole person, then my chances of recovering are way less. It doesn't mean that that can't happen, but they're way less versus it's like, hey, when you're here, we're going to treat your mind, body, and spirit in a environment of care that is home.
Right.
Right. And so that's what one of the things whenever they come to us, warriors come to us, like our staff for the probably 3-4 days, all they say to them is welcome home, and then which home is where you go when no one else wants you. Home is where you go when you need to heal. That's what home's supposed to be.
Comfort.
A lot of us didn't come up in that way, but that's what it's supposed to be. So, we got all our folks that come in. You don't go to rehab on an upswing.
They're not quite thriving.
I feel like working on my character a little bit. I was going to no one says my short-term goal. I didn't have a short-term goal or long-term goal to go to rehab.
Right.
No one has that. So they they come to us at the lowest parts they have ever been in their life. Like whatever that is for each individual, whether it was a homeless veteran or active duty spec ops guy, who hadn't got in trouble yet. So that whole gamut, and we meet them where they are. And that's the big thing is that we remind them of who they are, not who they are not.
Right.
Right? Because, they're at the lowest part they ever been in, but they weren't always like that. Most of them were in the top 10% of whatever their profession was. And so we're there to remind them of who they are and get rid of the garbage that they no longer need that doesn't serve. And so the environment of care with that is just like we need outdoors, we need people, we need openness, like all of that stuff. Like Michael said, is like if we ask them to be emotionally vulnerable, right? Not physically vulnerable,
right?
But emotionally vulnerable. Who wants to do that, right? But the only way that I can do that is if I'm in a secure environment, because security produces a feeling of safety. And if I feel like I'm safe, then I can be vulnerable to get to the spots that I want to do. If I'm having to worry about my security and having to worry about this person or that person or differences and all that stuff, then I'm not going to get to where we all need to be, and that is the truth.
You're really looking at the whole person. Absolutely. You're seeing the whole human, and you're honoring them, and that's just really special.
Yeah, with dignity and respect.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah.
It has to be that way because, to Tom's point, like we weren't always like that.
Right.
We and they weren't always like that.
Yeah, I love that where he said like we're seeing we're reminding them who they are because they're telling themselves who they are not.
Yeah, I'm
like
broken, I'm a piece of crap.
I'm a lost cause and
they're gonna be in history books soon.
Yeah.
Right? Some of them there's gonna be stories already happening. Yeah. So like the addiction doesn't make somebody a bad person. Unprocessed trauma doesn't make somebody a bad person. Decisions we make going through that disease, that sickness, doesn't make us a bad person. It means we need some help. We need some training. And like we meet them where they're at. Yeah. That's it. Like, okay, cool. Yeah. Come on. Don't care.
Yeah.
Do you want help? Let's go.
Yeah.
We can train you up if you're willing, and it doesn't matter what kind of baggage you got coming in.
Right.
Like,
yeah. It's kind of interesting how the kind of consciousness that I think the general consciousness when it comes to addiction.
There's a stigma attached to it. It's getting better, but there is a stigma attached to it, and there's a stigma attached to the word recovery too, like being in recovery. And I love when people bring that up, because I love to share that I used to have that same stigma attached to addiction, and I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, I'm in recovery. It means I'm weak and sick and helpless. Like, no, being in recovery means I get to recover things, which I have,
And the strength.
The 12 steps talks about the promises that will come to you if you work the program. And I've recovered my spirituality. I've recovered my family. I've recovered my sanity. I've recovered my finances. I've recovered all. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They weren't exactly, it wasn't exactly as it was when I lost it. It's different, right? But that's a good thing. Maybe I don't want the same stuff back.
No.
You know what I mean? But I do, and we can recover through that. So like there's a stigma attached to it, but golly, there shouldn't be. It's such a beautiful thing to be in recovery. And the people I know, like Tom and all the other people I know in my circle that are in recovery are friggin' phenomenal human beings.
Yeah, because the stigma too is that for the individual, like I said, I'm not a sociopath.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I was, then it wouldn't bother me. You know what I mean? But under the influence of alcohol and drugs, we make horrible decisions and cause great harm to others. But it's not because I was under the influence. Now, that's not a free ticket, a free write-off for me, because when we get sober, we take responsibility for everything that we've done and what was done to us, whatever that is. But it's also is good to know. It's like, yeah, but if I'm not under the influence, I don't do all those things, you know. And the stigma, I believe, will always be there because some people, because I was that guy at one time. Like, well, if this job is causing you trauma or whatever, you should have picked a different job.
Yeah, right.
Like I was the old guard guy for a while until I learned differently.
Until you put your foot in your mouth and you're like, oh, wait a second.
Hang on a second. Let's talk about this a minute. And but so it's always going to be out there. But like Michael was saying, is that we're pushing the needle, you know, even on active duty, which we know takes the longest time to move it. 10 years ago to what it is now is, for the military anyway, huge leaps and bounds. So I mean, we're getting there, but we're never going to change the stigma. So we're just rewriting the narrative.
Exactly.
Right? We're not fighting anything. We're saying, hey, it's that and it's this.
Right.
So it's not this or that. It's this and that.
Or it's just that and nothing. You know, not this. It's you guys are there.
And like Michael said, because people use that word and they don't even think about recovered. Like I've recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing.
What a beautiful thing.
Like who would it want?
It is.
Because it's like, and some people don't even know it. They just use the word. It's like, hey, what am I recovering? Like I'm recovering me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm recovering my family. I'm recovering my profession, maybe. Whatever it is that, but it's just an appropriate word that most people haven't put thought into, like, what does that mean? Like, what are we recovering? You know?
Exactly.
It's something that's worth recovering.
Exactly. Exactly. So how did the partnership with the Gary Sinise Foundation come about?
It came about instantly. You know what I mean? Like from the...
That's the Gary way.
The Gary way. So how it came about early on in... And I didn't know this until I was part of being a rehab, you know, part of Warrior's Heart is, you know, you have to get your license, you have to get credentialed for insurances, you have to get all this stuff, which usually you have to be working for a year in order to do it. So that first year, we didn't have the ability to take insurances. It was just out of pocket from the warriors that were coming in or a foundation that paid for them because they didn't have anything. And so one of the clients that we had was also a member, you know, a recipient, you know, of and a lot of interaction with the Sinise Foundation. And so next thing you know is like, you know, Gary and the foundation. I mean, this was in 16.
Yeah, I think it's 2016. Yeah.
So it was right. We opened in April of 16, so it wasn't long after that, you know. And so that's how Gary and the organization found out about us. And then obviously when that warrior came through treatment, was able to give feedback like, yeah, this is a good one. You know what I mean?
It was amazing.
Yeah, because if
before
it
and after.
It was the truth, you know. So so then that's when, and I haven't talked to Gary about this, but that's when the organization was like, okay, this is a valid organization, meaning Warrior's Heart, and we'll be happy to help us folks financially and whatever we can do to get them through. So that was, I mean, from the beginning, we've had a relationship with the Sinise Foundation, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's just continuing on.
Yeah, because most of the time, you know, especially that was at the beginning, you know, and then once we got credentialed and we got in-network and all these different words, you know, is where insurances can pay, it's like, hey, predominantly that's what happens, like almost 90% of the folks that come through that way, but that 10 to 12% that need financial assistance, even though the number's smaller, its impact is, you know what I mean, uncalculable, you know, because they don't have anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then how the VA works, you know, if you have a dishonorable discharge, you don't have VA benefit.
Nothing.
So a lot of our folks, because of alcohol and drugs and the things that they did while under the influence, you know, they got chaptered out, they got this kind of stuff. So a lot of organizations don't provide assistance to folks
think about that.
Oh, it's a huge thing. And if you look at it, it makes sense that, man, these people that got chaptered out for an alcohol-related incident or hot on drugs, like they need that facility, they need those benefits even more. But that's not what happens, right? So they get dishonorable. So at Warriors Heart, you know, we take the population. We've had Vietnam veterans come through, which, you know, is amazing. And and we've had dishonorable discharge folks come through. We've had pre 9/11, post 9/11. We don't have restrictions on who comes to us, just other than what we have to on the licensing piece.
Right.
But anyway, somehow back to we've been with the Sinise Foundation the whole way through. It's amazing.
Since inception, I love that.
Yeah, there is it's just like a little perspective, right? Like I totally could have been dishonorably discharged from the Marine Corps, like totally, full-on alcoholic, was getting in trouble. Like totally could have been. I'm thankful that I wasn't, but had that have happened, so many organizations out there absolutely would not care about me, not help me. And does that mean I don't deserve help? Like no, a lot of people get kicked out because they have TBI and unprocessed trauma, and they don't know how to deal with it, and then they get chaptered out or kicked out or whatever, and then they're what? Who's there to help them?
Yeah.
We don't care. DD-214, let's rock and roll.
That's amazing.
I don't care what it says.
Yeah.
20 years, 6 months.
Yeah.
Your experiences really have shaped, essentially, how you do things at Warriors Heart. And that's really incredible that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
You know? What therapies, would you consider your therapies unique, or can you shine a little light on your therapies and how they help?
Back to the whole person, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
So right from the get-go, they get two licensed counselors. They get a licensed chemical dependency counselor, right, who's an expert in that field, and then a licensed trauma counselor, who the behavioral health side of it. Again, because you can't do one without the other.
Right.
And so that's the piece that we do with that on the clinical side of the house.
So how our program is structured is our morning is designed to wake them up, some physical activity, yoga, nature hikes, mindfulness.
Okay, so this is, it's full body. They're
full
doing
bodies.
Okay.
Because does anybody want to wake up and then go straight into a trauma group? No, maybe let's wake up first.
Yeah, not quite.
So we do experientials in the morning after breakfast to wake them up, and then from 10 to 12 o'clock we go through the heavy hitting stuff. Trauma groups, relapse prevention, PTSD, PTSD in the 12 steps, like all of those things. And then the afternoon is when we incorporate our electives, which brings that whole holistic approach. Because what a warrior can do is go through an individual session with one of the two. Let's just say the LPC for trauma. A warrior can go through a trauma session.
What's LPC?
A licensed professional counselor.
Got it.
And they can go through that individual session, get ripped wide open.
Oh yeah, emotions are raw in there,
and then go process personally in the wood shop or the metal shop or the art program or the gym or the canine program or fishing so they can go. And when I say wood shop and metal shop, I mean it full on plasma table, CAD machine, like full on shop where they can do something with their hands, build a tomahawk, build an American flag, they can do anything, and it's a way for them to process independently in a healthy way. Because what are they going to do when they go home?
Probably think about drinking.
They have to. You can't replace something with nothing. You have to replace it with something. And so we incorporate all of these healthy therapeutic electives so that they can replace the negative with something positive. And a lot of our folks started their own companies making, like this one guy,
furniture.
That is so cool.
He learned how to do metal work, started his own place, his own vet warrior knives and was on Forged in Fire, the show Forged in Fire.
Super cool.
We had a Warriors Heart alumni with what they learned in our shop was on the show Forged in Fire.
That is so
That's
cool.
winning. The guy's thriving.
So cool.
Yeah, and back when we were talking about stigmas, like there's a stigma of treatment also, and that is that it should be punitive.
Right.
Right, because you dirty, rotten, nasty, alcoholic addict, you shouldn't have anything nice. I mean, that's just out there. And so a lot of times we hear all kinds of crap in the industry on like we're like Club Med or you know, we have all these shops and all these things that's all we're doing. But like Michael was saying, that's the balance, right? Because like I'm in there talking with a clinician about things that I want to take to my grave, but I know that I can't. So now I'm opening up about all that. I'm a mess. Talking about my feelings, which who wants to do that? You know what I mean? All of that. And I've been sitting in group all morning with people, some of them that I don't want to be with. You know, so now I can go this elective time, and it's just the balance of all that internal hard work. Because by the time they hit the elective times, it's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to me. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want to hear my voice. I just want to work on it. And all of that is creativity, and we know what creativity does to our physiology and stuff. And it's very symbolic because most of our folks, you know, by the time they get to us, they've broken many things, you know. So instead of damaging and destroying, now we're going to build and create, you know. So it's just the balance. It's like not, oh, this isn't chill time, you know what I mean?
No, this is work.
Because that's the thing about our programming. Like in order to get your coin, what we call coining out, like there's a standard for it. Like, and it starts at 07 in the morning and doesn't end until 8:30 p.m.
Wow.
Like the only free time that they have was 8:30 p.m. to 11 where it's lights out. But that's where all the magic happens. Back to the warriors, healing warriors. We need our subject matter experts in all these pieces of our curriculum to do what it does, to get them, okay, here we are by the fire pit. You got one warrior that he's on day 2, right? He's trying to figure out how the heck do I get out of here? You know what I mean? And then you got a guy at day 40 is like, oh my gosh, I'm not really ready to leave. And you know, and back to like the peer network, like in our population, we don't have to talk about mentorship. We don't have to talk about leadership. If we see someone that's lower on the rung or needs the help, like we just do it. Like we just do it. It's what we serve, right? And we serve each other too. And but and you'll have one client that like has been the worst day of their life, and then you have another one that's been the absolute best. So all of that comes together, and there's not another word for it other than magic. I mean, I don't know.
You've hit it a couple of times too. The strong thing that I keep hearing too is community. You guys really do create such a beautiful community with everybody.
Which is really weird. Like you were in the military, like you don't do anything alone.
No.
At minimum, there's a 2-man rule.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a buddy team.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, but whenever we get out, even without chemical dependencies or whatever, it's like, okay, I got this now. And it's like, what? That doesn't even follow a warrior ethos. Like, where's your battle buddy?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So back to when you said community, it's like, because most of our folks have been isolated in shame, guilt, remorse, locked in their own prison. And so we get them back into the community, and we don't do anything there that's militaristic,
right?
But it has that same battle rhythm. Like Michael was describing, 07, first meeting, 7:30 chow, 8 to 10, you know what I mean, or 8 to 9:30, we're walking outside. You know, so it's got that familiarity to it, you know, and I'm in a schoolhouse environment, whether it was a police academy, basic training, you know what I mean, everybody's been to something like that, so it's like, okay, I'm in training, and that's the big thing that we talk about. It's trained or untrained, right?
Right.
So if I'm struggling with mental, emotional health, spiritual health, or you know, chemical dependencies, you can say, Tom, when's the last time you got trained on that? Never. Well, it's like, well, then it doesn't make sense. You're struggling.
Exactly.
How about you get some training, get cleaned up, trained up, and wouldn't it make sense that you have a better chance of making it? You know. So that's just the truth of it is it's training what we do, and it's breaking down and all the different things.
Yeah, it's not weakness. You know, this is work. You know, it's
a lot of
strength.
Yeah, it's strength.
Like some people struggle with just working a full-time job. We have 40 hours of scheduled programming a week, so it is a full-time gig where these guys and gals are training. It's not couple hours a day here and there. It's 40 scheduled hours a week of work. That's plus, because they're going to do other things.
Right.
That's 40 hours plus a week.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but Tom says it all the time, we only have 42 days to train them back up and get them back out in the fight. Whether that's back on active duty service, back out on the police force, or back in the community with your family.
Right.
We have 42 days to train you as best as we can before you have to put that training into practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything less than that is doing a disservice to something that these warriors fought for and deserve.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be that way.
Yeah. Okay, well, as you know, this podcast is in honor of Gary's son, Mac, who we lost in January 2024. And Mac's passion for this mission grew deeper and deeper as he became more hands-on, and especially as he was serving alongside his dad. And one of the things was seeing the impact that it made, the life-changing support that we were providing to those that we serve. It just changed him in a way. And so I wanted to ask you, do you have one story about someone who's gone through Warrior's Heart that, it changed their life?
I think we probably got about 3,500
I know.
stories.
I was like, what? You probably have, so many of them.
I can share one.
Okay.
So like Tom said, since 2016, Sinise Foundation has been in support of Warrior's Heart and warriors coming through our program who need some help. And just in 2024, Sinise Foundation helped almost 80 warriors get help, and that changes their kids' life, everybody's life around them, their friends' life, their coworkers. It changes. The ripple effect is huge of just helping one person. But this one story specifically.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's a warrior that reached out to us. Like Tom said, this isn't something you plan in your 10, 20, 30 year life plan. I'm going to go to rehab and, I'm going to have a problem. It's end of the rope, bottom of, life is almost over. Okay, I'm going to call for help. So they reached out and they had insurance, but they were in a financial hardship, couldn't afford their out of pocket, which insurance requires it. It's your insurance, you got to pay it or get it paid. And so they sent us a narrative and a request for help. And we looked at the request and it was this would be a good Sinise Foundation grant request. So let's approve Sinise for this request. So the team reached out to this warrior and broke down in tears. Absolutely broke down in tears, started crying, and then shared with us how he met Gary.
Wow.
In Iraq. Gary went and visited this many years ago and told him, if you ever need anything,
get out.
I will help you.
For real.
So then he sent us a photo of him and Gary
In Iraq.
And was like, please give him this letter, and which we did. We sent it, but it was that stuff happens at Warrior's Heart all the time.
All the time.
And this was, who knows? I don't know. I think there might be a year on it. It was 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Could be even 20 years ago, where Gary told this individual, if you ever need anything, I'll be there to help you. And he reached out to Warrior's Heart for help. And through the partnership that we have with Gary Sinise came through on his promise. However many years ago.
It's so beautiful.
When that happened, I broke down in tears. How does this happen? And the guy's doing great.
Meant to be.
Thriving. In gratitude to Gary and the donors and everybody that helped put that piece together for him. It's huge.
That is incredible.
Yeah, that was amazing. So, but like Michael said, that's our life. We're so fortunate that that's our profession. It comes with a lot of heartache and stuff too. And I mean, you asked the question, so I'll give you my answer to it, which is not really the great warming story aspects of it, but for me, it's the ones that we lose. The wins is what keeps us going, but the ones that really, I'm kind of weird, wired different, but it's for me, it's our losses, meaning personal friends that have come through Warrior's Heart, and many other things that they've done and end up still taking their own lives. Those are the ones that, keep me going, and not as a sense of failure, not as like we didn't do our jobs or survivors, not any of that stuff. That was their journey, and stuff. But it always keeps me going as far as like, okay, for that one, and then along the way, then you see those miracles happening too. Like one of the guys that's he's now a staff member of Warriors Heart, 2 years later. But when I met him across the fire pit, after I spoke there one night, have you ever heard that term, you spot it, you got it? Meaning you notice something in somebody else,
yep,
you got it, and so I looked across the fire pit, and this dude was hopeless. And he reminded me of me, because I know that. And I was like, this guy's going to have a rough one, and he was. And then, but then next thing you know what I mean? Because like looking at him, knowing it's like, okay, he's got the potential of, of not being here for long.
Oh, yeah.
And then to see him where he is now, So like I said, we have almost 3,300 of those stories now. Man. In 9 years, that many warriors have come through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're like the most blessed people that I know.
That's incredible. What advice would you give to someone, you're looking across the fire pit to him, like to someone who's nervous about seeking help, or who does feel like they're a lost cause, or, they're too far gone. Yeah. If that's what their rhetoric is in their mind, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it sounds cliche, but I would tell them, like, you're not alone. Because that's humans crave connection, and whenever you're in that darkness, like I said, it thinks like I'm all alone. It feels like I'm all alone. Like, I believe it, that no one is as messed up as I am. No one's done what I've done or had done to them what's been done to it. I mean, I believed that, and it wasn't true. But I don't know that. So that's why I always say is like, hey, you are not alone.
Right.
And there's plenty of people that are around that are waiting to help you, but you have to put forth the effort. Like, we can't pull you out on our own. If it worked that way, we'd be pulling people out all over, but that level of willingness. So just be willing to do one more step. Just give it one last try. You know what I mean? That's what we tell them at Warriors Heart. And the thing about Warriors Heart is that Warriors Heart is where the lost find their way home. It's where the broken find their power. And it's where the forgotten are remembered forever.
Oh.
So
yeah,
that's who we are, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
So come to us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're waiting for you.
Take that step. Yeah. Thank you both so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your stories. There is such strength and vulnerability, and you've shown that today. And I cannot thank you enough. And you are true examples of recovery, resilience, and renewal. And thank you so much for helping our struggling warriors find their way home. Thank you. And as we do with every podcast episode, Mac will close out the show.
You've been listening to GSF Podcast, the official podcast of the Gary Sinise Foundation. If you'd like to find out more about what the foundation is up to, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit GarySiniseFoundation.org. Make sure to tune in next time for more interviews, and thanks for joining us.